Welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, where we highlight the latest trends in law office and law practice management to help you run your law firm. Brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Institute. You're listening to Legal Talk Network.
Hello, and welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Practice Resource Institute on Legal Talk Network. This is Jonathon Israel, and I'm the director of the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Institute, and I'm recording today from the 2018 Annual Florida Bar Convention in Orlando, Florida. Thank you for joining us. So joining me today, I have Amy Borman and Murray Silverstein, who just wrapped up their presentation on EFiling and dealing with the e-courts here in Florida. I'd like to give them now a chance to introduce themselves. Murray, would you mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, my name is Murray Silverstein. I'm an attorney, been practicing in Florida for about 36 years. I have a civil and commercial litigation practice in Tampa. And like Amy, I'm a rule geek and have been serving on rule committees for the Florida Bar for some time, including a relatively recent addition called the Florida Courts Technology Commission. And as you heard in the seminar, the FCTC is responsible for recommending policy and procedures for technology in the courts to the Supreme Court that has the ultimate authority for promulgating policy in Florida. And so that's what I do. Active full-time litigation lawyer, but I spend my free time and vacations doing things avocationally like serving on bar rule committees. Nice. It's my fun.
Yes.
Very, very much so.
Yes. And Amy, do you mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jonathan. My name is Amy Borman. I'm general counsel to the 15th Judicial Circuit in West Palm Beach, Florida. I have the unique job of being the attorney for the 54 judges here in West Palm Beach, as well as for the 15th Judicial Circuit. Like Murray, I am a rule geek. We have both served as chair for the Rules of Judicial Administration Committee. Having sat on that committee for 6 years, I have termed off, but I am still involved in some ad hoc committees dealing with rewriting some of our rules of judicial administration.
That's great. No, thank you both for sitting and joining us today. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to talk to you because in the Practice Resource Institute, we get so many questions from bar members about the e-filing portal and how to interface with it and what they need to be doing with their documents to get them properly e-filed. So this is a great opportunity for our listeners to really learn how it works and what to do. So really, if we can just start with the basics about the e-filing portal. Is there one specific portal for the state?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a single point of entry. It's accessible anywhere in the state of Florida, and it is essentially a pass-through. The portal is, as a conduit, a means through which you can file, and now the service also effects service of process. So you file your document, the portal receives it, it serves it simultaneously, almost simultaneously within minutes, and then it's routed down to the what's called CMS, Local Clerks Case Management or Case Maintenance System in the respective counties throughout the state of Florida. So then you can use the portal to also access your documents if you'd like, or you can go directly to the local CMS to access and view your documents. If you're of record, you get everything simultaneously with service, and you can build your database of filed court documents that way. But if you're not of record in the case, you can get your items by accessing and viewing through the CMS. But the portal is easy access, single point of entry, statewide, uniform, and is actually managed by the portal authority that is a 8-member board of clerks of the courts throughout Florida. They're volunteer positions.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions that we get into the Practice Resource Institute a lot is, how do I even get signed up for the portal? There's some confusion there as far as information that I need to have on record, whether it's my bar email address, my bar number, what it is that they need to really get started and get registered with the portal.
Yeah, it's an interactive, pretty easy process. You can just simply Google My Florida Courts or My Florida Portal, and you'll create a username, a password, information, including your Florida bar number, assuming you're a lawyer. You actually have user rights now if you're not a lawyer. Non-lawyer mediators can register, process servers, mental health professionals, and others can also register to file through the portal. But the single most or largest group of users is still lawyers. And so you put that information in, you create your account, username and password then creates the mechanism through which you file through the portal. And you'll typically be able to also designate a staff person who can also be on the certificate of service or the filing portal service list. So it's relatively simple, relatively easy, and the website itself is loaded with tutorials and instructional videos and related information. In fact, Carolyn Weber was one of the people on our panel this morning, and she's the one who's helped create those videos.
And then as far as the standards for the portal go, as far as document submission, that's another question that we get in there a lot. Is there any set standards that they need to be following with their documents?
Yeah, the documents themselves can be filed as word processed documents, actually Word Perfect or Word, and the portal has the capability to convert those to PDFs. But the best practice is to create your own digital document by converting your word processed document into a PDF, file it as a PDF. In fact, there are numerous things we went through in this morning's seminar about the needs to protect confidentiality, minimize sensitive information, and make sure that what you're putting in is properly redacted so that anything that's inappropriate, juvenile names, bank account numbers, social security numbers, have been minimized or redacted. And then if there's confidential information, that also has to be either withheld or identified so the clerk can locate that and essentially scrub it or redact it. But the actual document creation process is no more difficult than a right click to convert your Word document into a PDF, Adobe PDF, save it to your desktop, properly name it, and then upload it and file it through the portal. The process takes probably less than 5 minutes.
And Jonathan, if I can chime in for a second, one of the important things that people have to realize is that the document should be created in either Word or, if they still use Word Perfect, but as Murray said, saved as a PDF on the computer. We just got some statistics for the May filings, and of the almost 2 million documents, only 712,000 were done correctly. That is being created by a word processing software and then saved as a PDF. We had 1.3 million that were PDFs, but they were scanned. So it would be the situation where you had a document and then you took a pen and you signed your name and then you put it through your copier as a scanner and then e-filed it. While it says it's a PDF, it technically is just a picture image of the document that is not searchable, which is one of the requirements, and it also takes up more space on the servers at the portal. There was over 111,000 documents that were filed as Word documents rather than as PDFs, and 58 Word Perfect documents. What Murray had mentioned before, I believe he mentioned the standards, while there are rules of procedure governing e-filing and e-service, the Florida Courts Technology Commission has set up a set of standards that will govern how something is to be filed, the size of it, the text size, or whatever you need with regard to standards. And that can be found on the FCT website as well, or webpage.
FCTC website, yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up the issue about the printing of the document, signing it, and scanning it back in, because I know that's a big hang-up for a lot of attorneys that just don't understand how else are they supposed to do it when they need to require a client's signature. Do you have some advice or tips? With
the client signature, and some of these I'm going to defer to Murray because he's a practitioner. I represent the court, so I can answer more questions with regard to the court side of it. But if there are exhibits that require a client signature, you can't do anything but scan that document in unless you have e-notarization or an e-signature from the client. It's really the lawyers are under the obligation to create their document in Word or Word Perfect and then right-click and save it as a Adobe PDF. And we're moving to a PDF-A standard because the document should be or must be readable for OCR, which stands for
Optical character recognition.
Right. So that way, if somebody is vision impaired, the document will be read to them through the OCR software. So that's why it's very important that the document itself is an Adobe PDF rather than a scanned document that has the PDF extension to it, but it truly is not a PDF.
And Murray, did you have anything to add about the signature?
No, but one of the things that's great for the practitioners to start recognizing and becoming more aware about, as Amy mentioned, is these standards, these technology standards. And what's really important is they're not court rules per se, but they're going to be married up essentially with the court rules. So the how-to of the megabyte limitation for a filing or a served document, the manner in which an exhibit is attached to or identified as an attachment to a file document, the actual security that may be required for an e-signature, and the attributes that go into the metadata that are part of the document created, including hyperlinks and bookmarks and indices and things like that. All that will be dealt with and is being dealt with in these technology standards promulgated by the Florida Supreme Court. And so we're hoping that these will be an integral part of the rules of judicial administration. They should be and can be integrated or incorporated into all the rule sets, but by being in that single rule set, RJA, it's the easiest, most streamlined procedure through which practitioners will know about the technology requirements for documents that get into the system, as opposed to putting all that technical stuff into a court rule. You don't want the court rule being clogged up with information that may become stale, like, converting from a 10 to a 50 megabyte limitation is something that occurred in about, from 3 years ago to a year ago. And you have other standards that are going to continue to remain dynamic and in flux. And you want those in something that's a living, breathing, more dynamic set of documents like these technology standards.
And for the listeners, if I can just add in that if you Google Florida Supreme Court standards for electronic access to the courts, that should pull up the document, which is housed at flcourts.org. And
then you mentioned the FCTC website, and then I know that the Bar News has been trying to do a really good job of keeping up with the latest changes and standards and everything else, and get those out to the bar members. And we ourselves at Practice Resource Institute are trying to do the same. Are there other websites or other resources that the bar members should be paying attention to make sure that they're not missing out on anything with the portal?
I would say, Jonathan, the best way to stay current and apprised is your go-to source is going to be the Florida Bar, first and foremost. The Florida Bar Board of Governors, for the last several years, and in particular the last 5, has really placed technology in the courts at the forefront of the various presidents' agendas. And if you go to any of these locations that you just mentioned, they all link to one another. So you can go to the Florida Bar website, it'll link to the FCTC. The FCTC will link to the Florida Supreme Court. The Florida Supreme Court has OSCA, the Office of State Courts Administration, that also links to the FCCC, and vice versa, the Florida Court and Controllers Association. So they're all integrated in one way or another. And so probably, though, what I would suggest for information on how to look to the informational stuff that's available on the bar's website, as well as the FCTC, and if you click on it's actually flcourts.org is the site, and that'll take you to court technology, and then lots and lots of great informational current postings and articles and other links you could find there. So it's not for a lack of information, but I think at some point we're going to say, well, it seems like you should be able to have a single way to tap in and then look at other alternatives. So the best way of doing that right now is just linking them together. So,
sure.
And if I can also add that for the practitioner that's listening, or somebody working with court technology or technology in the law office, the website for the FCTC, a lot of the information is housed on flcourts.org/resources-and-services/court-technology/. When you get to that page, which is the court technology page, it will list current projects, technology commissions and committees, EFiling, the e-record, court access, the standards, as well as the applicable rules and statutes.
Oh, great. And then I know that also on the portal's website, Carolyn has done a great job of putting training videos out there to help walk them through any questions they may have with, we touched briefly on the metadata and removing metadata from documents. And I know she's got some great videos out there that will assist them with that as well. So that's a great resource for them to reach out to. Unfortunately, it looks like we've already reached the end of our program. I know we could go on for a long time talking about this, but I want to thank both Murray and Amy for joining us today and touching on e-filing and integrating with the e-courts. If our listeners have any questions and want to follow up with either one of you, Amy, how would they go and get in touch with you?
The best way to reach me is through my email address, aborman@pbcgov.org.
Great, thank you. And Murray, if they want to reach out to you?
Murray.silverstein@gmlaw.com, telephone 813-769-7036. Thanks a lot, Jonathan. We appreciated being with you today.
No, great. I appreciate both you guys being here.
Thank you.
Well, this has been another edition of the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Practice Resource Institute on Legal Talk Network. I want to thank our guests once again for joining us today. If you like what you heard, please find and rate us on iTunes. I'm Jonathon Israel, and until next time, thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Institute and produced by the broadcast professionals at Legal Talk Network. If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find the Florida Bar, the Florida Bar Practice Resource Institute, and Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Or download the free app from Legal Talk Network in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.